Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world right now. You are very welcome to this session. As you know, the title of the session is Where the Magic Happens, Partnerships Beyond the Comfort Zone. So we're going to explore that topic, but before we move ahead, just a little bit of housekeeping. The one that we are going to use is rename. So here in the screen, you can see how to rename yourself. In case you don't have it yet, just the three dots, and here you have on the scroll a rename, and you just put your name. For the people that are connected with Bridge 47, please, we ask you to put Bridge 47 so then we can recognize you during the session to put you in breakout rooms. Thank you, Alan. Thank you for, can you stop the projection, please? Yes. So to start, we are going actually to start the session with introduction from Frank Jerry. Frank, he is the director of the Irish Development Education Association, who are Bridge 47 consortium partner, who have led on the partnerships outcomes of the project to provide us with the rationale for why Bridge 47 decided to pursue such partnerships and the range of partnerships involved over the past few years. So thank you, Frank, and we listen to you.
Thank you very much, Charo and Alan, and thanks everybody. It's really great to be here with all of you today at this session. So Charo's asked me about our starting point and the rationale. Well, the starting point really was about education and mutual learning. So as an education community, we want to reach as many learners as possible. And as a learning community, we want to learn from others and as many others as possible. So as Charo has explained, IDEA is one of the many organizations who are involved in Bridge 47. And when we were beginning this journey, we were looking and asking the broader Bridge community and our members questions about where people wanted to go. And something that came up very strongly was about reaching beyond the people that we're currently talking to. You know, moving outside of our box was a phrase that was used. As well as this, the Sustainable Development Goals, and in particular, the universality of the Sustainable Development Goals really underlines our interdependence, the fact that these are goals for all parts of the world. And within that, Sustainable Development Goal 17 particularly encourages and emphasizes partnerships. So therefore, we decided to focus on partnerships that would expand the space for global citizenship education, partnerships that would bring us to new areas, to new audiences, to people that we maybe don't normally engage with, and that would bring people with other perspectives to the global citizenship education community so that we can learn from one another. So that mutuality is really at the heart of these partnerships. And something else that's at the heart of them is experiment. We knew that some of our attempts at partnerships would work well and that others would not. And we really wanted to learn from what didn't work as much as from what did work. And we also wanted to think about specifically what Bridge 47 brings to partnerships. So those who are practitioners here in this group will know that so much of global citizenship education is about bringing together different strands and different elements and creating and holding space for debate, sometimes for disagreement, sometimes for agreement, but really creating and holding that space. So with that in mind, we set out to explore three different kinds of partnerships. Exploratory partnerships with groups or organizations who don't normally engage with global citizenship education. Advocacy partnerships, partnerships that engage with policymakers and political processes, and knowledge partnerships, which bring together researchers and civil society. And that's led to some wonderful, excellent, and sometimes unexpected partnerships. And you can see on this slide some of the many organizations who have been involved in various different countries. And some examples, and the next slide will show this as well, of these collaborations include delivering workshops on the Sustainable Development Goals using a global citizenship education approach to trade union staff and board members in Denmark, to businesses in Ireland and Estonia, and to adult educators in Slovenia. Creating films on global citizenship education issues in partnership with a TV broadcaster watched by thousands of people in Estonia. Creating a policy toolkit in partnership with the Scottish Government's National Performance Framework team that incorporated global citizenship education in order to support policymakers to see the connections between the Sustainable Development Goals and the National Performance Framework in Scotland. Also organising an event with Business in the Community Northern Ireland, which brought businesses and global citizenship education practitioners together in order to develop mutual understanding, to explore connections and possible collaborations. And many more, some of which we will hear about today from the panel, and some of which I hope we'll hear about from participants who are involved in the session today who've been engaged with this. So a key aspect of this, and this is onto the final slide, is that we've been really keen to share the learning from the partnership's work. And we've done that through the development of publications, through training courses, which I hope some of you have been engaged with, through an online MOOC, which again, if you haven't already engaged with it, I really hope that you will, and through events like this today. So we really hope that today is going to be a space for all of us to learn together, to learn with one another. So I'm really looking forward to learning with and from you all. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Frank, for that, to giving us the rationale of why Bridge 47 took this journey to understand partnerships. And listening to you, I remember this quote about, if you want to walk fast, walk alone. But if you want to go far, walk together. So let's hear all these stories about what we have learned about partnership. So now, before we keep moving forward, let's see who is in the room. Everyone is very welcome. If you could write on the chat, where are you located at this moment? Where your feet is touching the ground? And what sector do you work in? For example, you might be in Ireland and working for the private sector, or in Finland and working for academia. So if you can write on the chat that where are you located right now, and in what sector. And also to let you know that we are having a graphic recorder for this session, is Maria, and we are actually going to project some of yes, there's starting the graphic recording there. So thank you, Maria, in advance for that. So let's see, what do we have on the chat so far? So we have Edinburgh in Scotland, development education, people in Dublin, in Germany, NGOs, in England, okay, Scotland, voluntary sector, Finland, civil society. Welcome to all of you. Slovenia, Croatia, Cyprus. Oh, we have a good broad spectrum of people. Excellent. So now what we are going to do is we are going to launch a poll, a Zoom poll. And there is going to be 3 questions that we want to ask you to please respond to the question. So Alan, yes, thank you. So here you have 3 questions. The first one is, have you experienced the magic of partnerships with a different sector than your own? So just a yes or a no. And then which sector? You can actually, you have multiple choices there. And if you can start responding to the poll. So far, no one is responding to the poll. So if you can't respond, oh no, yes, people are starting to respond to the poll now. So you have the which sector, and then you can mark more than one. And then please mention a sector which you will feel somewhat uncomfortable. Question number 3 is like somewhat uncomfortable to partner up. Yeah, it could be because of confidence, or maybe different opinions, and so on. Okay, so far we have 50% people that voted. We are going to give another 30 seconds. Right? Okay. We are actually going to close the polling and show the results in 5 seconds. Let's see. We have more than 50% of people that voted, but we are actually going to close the poll now. Okay, I'm going to end the poll and I'm going to share the results. Okay, so now you probably you can see the results. So in the first one, have you experienced the magic of partnership with a different sector than your own? So we have the people that respond, 95% that from the respondents that yes, which the 45% is that public sector political decision making is the one that you have more experience, and the one that has less experience will be large corporations in this answer. Actually, no, sorry, I just noticed that the less experience will be with the police and the army, because we have zero respondents there. Okay. The next question is, please mention a sector which you will feel somewhat uncomfortable to partner up. So here we have, again, of course, the police and the army, because nobody had that on the previous question. So that will be the one that people will feel uncomfortable. And the second one will be large corporations. Excellent. Thank you so much for giving us these answers. And I would like to invite anyone that wants to open the microphone and share about what is that any reason why that sector could make you uncomfortable, whether large corporations or the police and the army. So anyone that wants to share something around that. You just need to open the microphone.
Yeah, I might go ahead then. I suppose it would be different for me. It was large corporations as well, and having a different sort of, attitude or opinion to things. But more importantly, I suppose, value base. I just feel that, that would be a real challenge to partner up with, an actor or an entity that maybe doesn't share your same value base, because a lot of what we do arises from our values. I suppose that's, one sort of concern.
Thank you very much, Mary. And I think that you have addressed an important element is like the alignment around values. Thank you for that. And anybody else? Is there anybody else that wants to mention something about this, like the discomfort?
Yeah, I will. It's Gertrude here. I'll just put on my video. Hi, Charo, how are you? No, this is going back a long time, so in some ways it's not recent, but I did it wasn't specifically development education, it was more anti-racism training with police force. And now it was a long time back, and in fairness, I think the guards in Ireland, where I live, have done an awful lot of work in this area, actually. But I suppose one of the issues, and it may arise in any particular time, and it is a long time back, but one of the issues was the resistance by some very senior people. Not so much there was an age gap, I think, or there was a kind of a resistance and a kind of defensiveness among some who were in authority and who kind of came in and were very defensive, whereas so in the first day they weren't there, and not necessarily an age thing, but more of a seniority thing, which can happen in institutions, which especially ones which are very hierarchical, and that kind of questioning and way of asking questions and criticality was just not something that they were comfortable with. So when the senior management came in on the second day, and then it was just it was the other people were afraid to talk. So they were just so unused. And, you know, I'm sure that could still happen in places, you know, that kind of just difficulty and not sitting well with that kind of questioning and yeah, that kind of thing. And I'm sure it could happen, you know, in other places as well, you know, defensiveness and then trying to manage that. And it takes experience too to manage that. And I suppose I wasn't that experienced either. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Gertrude. I think that when we actually start to reflect about what worked or what didn't work, actually help us to see, okay, what are the different possibilities that we have, and I think that it takes quite a lot of self-reflection also to understand what sits and what doesn't sit, and what is that we need to learn in when we build relationships, because at the end of the day, partnerships are about relationships. So thank you for that. So what is going to be the journey for this session? First, we're going actually to hear from the panelists. We have 3 stories about partnerships that actually we are going to learn from. Then after you listen to these examples, to these stories of what happened with this partnership, how what emerged, why, what were the learnings, what are the challenges, and what are the possibilities. All of you are going to have the opportunity to digest this information, and you are going to go into smaller groups, into a breakout groups, where you actually will have the possibility to have a conversation around this, and to see what is that you can actually take from your own practice. And then we are going to get back together again into the plenary to listen to each other again in the bigger picture. So we're going to introduce the panelists. They are actually going to introduce themselves. We're going to start with Emily. Emily, share please with us, who are you and where are you?
Hi, thank you. Yes, my name's Emily Brodis. I'm a public health doctor. I work in NHS Ayrshire and Arran. While I was involved in this partnership, I was actually on secondment to the Global Health Coordination Unit. I used to be a paediatric surgeon. That's how I originally trained. And I spent some time working out in Malawi, where I co-founded a burn prevention project. So that's where my kind of interest around the whole local to global sort of relationship emerged, I guess. So that's where I'm from. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Emily. And now we are going to hear from Charlotte.
Hi, hello everybody. So I'm Charlotte Dwyer, and I'm based in Edinburgh in Scotland, and I'm the director of ScotDec, which is a development education centre, one of 5 that we have in Scotland. So I've been working in education and global citizenship education for a long time, but it's nearly almost always been in the formal sector or the youth sector. So it's been really exciting to be involved in a completely different partnership.
Brilliant, Charlotte. So in a minute, we are going actually to listen to Emily and Charlotte and about this partnership that they have been involved together. We're actually going to listen now from Claire. Claire, please share with us.
Great, thanks a million, Charo. So my name is Claire and I'm here today from the Corporate Responsibility team in Deloitte, Ireland. So I previously worked in the charity sector before moving over to the dark side, I suppose, of the corporate world. So hopefully I can answer some of those questions that you may have around that statistic that came up about working with larger corporations. And I suppose our story with Bridge 47 and IDEA is an educational one, and it's about giving our people the chance to give back to their community and learning what role they can play in realising the SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. And Frank.
Thanks, Charo. Thanks, everyone. Well, I've already introduced myself. I'm the director of IDEA here here in Ireland, and really looking forward to this conversation with Claire and with the other panelists and with everybody here to speak about the partnerships that we had with Deloitte. But also, I guess, IDEA within Bridge 47, we were the lead partner on partnerships overall. So be very interested to share perspectives on that as well. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Frank and Claire, who again, they are going actually to share with us about this partnership in Ireland. And now we're actually going to hear from Inga and Daiga, who actually are in Latvia. So Inga, we want to hear from you.
Hello, everyone. We're a little bit late. Sorry, we got confused with the time zones and everything, calculating for several times, and still we got mistaken. So my name is Inga Surgund. I'm very happy to be part of this project, although we were just a small partner in the whole great story. So I'm representing the National Library of Latvia. I'm the project manager at the National Library of Latvia, and I work for the permanent exhibition called Books in Latvia, and we associate ourselves more with museum sector, and we believe in the capacity of museums and culture to drive change and to, so to say, advocate for the SDGs. And that was this context how we joined the project Bridge 47 and Daiga's team.
Thank you so much, Inga. And we know that there was like a confusion on time zones, but that's part of it, because that's where we are, like in all of us, we are in different time zones. So I am glad that you make it. Thank you very much for being here. And Daiga, we listen to you. But you need to open your microphone because we can't hear yet.
Yes, sorry. So sorry. Greetings from Latvia. My name is Daiga Zake. I am director of Center for Education Initiatives. We are the Bridge 47 members, network members, and we work in the global education, global citizenship education, and quality of education topics. And we are very glad to participate in our meetings today.
You're very welcome, Daiga. Excellent. So we have three examples, three stories, three journeys that we are really looking forward to learn from. So the first pair will be Emily and Charlotte. So it's going to be the voices from Scotland. We are going actually to hear what actually happened, and we are going to start asking Charlotte actually what happened. I mean, what were the hopes for this partnership? If you can take us through this, Charlotte.
Yes, of course. So I think I always saw there was quite a lot of possible potential in this partnership from a couple of years ago, really, when I first met Emily's colleague Bernie at a conference, and she started talking to me about the work of the NHS in Scotland, and I had no idea that they already had this Global Citizens Champions network. So I could already see through this network that there was, you know, a real desire to engage with global citizenship education. And then once I found out more and learnt more about the global health work and the partnerships and the numbers of volunteers from the NHS in Scotland who went overseas, I could see that there was a real desire to engage with some of this work. And I suppose from my own personal experience, I know what it's like if you volunteer overseas in countries such as Malawi, where Scotland has lots of relationships, that when you come back, there's often a strong desire to do something and find a space within your own local context to develop some of that work. So I could see that there was a need for this space within the NHS network for staff who had been overseas to come back and explore some of these bigger ideas, but also that there were people, there's always people who we can't all volunteer overseas and have these experiences. So there needs to be that kind of space locally to see that you can also contribute through global citizenship and to kind of build and expand on those local connections as well as the global connections, and see how the things interconnect with one another. So I could see that there was definitely a space that we could support. And then after we started, when Bridge came in, and we were able to put a little bit more resource behind the partnership, we started to think through ideas, and we could see quite clearly, I think, quite early on that a SDG resource and some training were things that could add value to that network.
Thank you, Charlotte, and thank you, because you actually very clearly said that you saw the need. So it was like observing what is that the opportunity there, and also for that finding those spaces locally to respond to that. And let's listen from Emily, because Emily, from your perspective, why did you or your organization see global citizenship education as relevant for the work that you were doing, no? You need to open the microphone.
Apologies, sorry. Yeah, it's great that Charlotte started with Bernie. Bernie is a clinical senior lecturer in both St Andrews University of Scotland and at the College of Medicine in Malawi. And so I think she has this really enviable position of working in these two countries with quite different cultures and opportunities that are available to people. And I think through that work of seeing actually how some of her own the local decisions that we make here in Scotland can actually impact on people that live in Malawi, it gave that real tangible experience or insight of, what do we mean to be a global citizen? And so Bernie really started this work off and the conversations with Charlotte. And so when I joined the Global Health Coordination Unit back in, 2019, and this was just beginning, I immediately just recognised the synergy there in my own experiences of returning as a surgeon to NHS Scotland. And there were two really strong things that struck me. One was having worked in a country with such poverty, and you were able to directly make that connection between poverty and health, to then be able to then see it in your own patient population back in your own practice, meant that could lead to lots of frustrations around how you can actually help your own patient population to be as healthy as they can. And secondly, around some of the resource use, being a surgeon and seeing all of the waste when you've worked in a really low resource country, to then come back and operate and see the waste that we generate through our health service, and just thinking about, it wasn't just me. There are lots of people that will have these frustrations. And so Bernie was mapping out these health partnerships that existed, the people that went and worked in low or middle income countries, and how they returned. But not only that, there are many people who work in NHS Scotland who aren't necessarily at a time in their life or in their career where they can go abroad. And so actually it's helping people to really empower them and to realise that their day-to-day life can make a difference indirectly on global health. And it became quite clear that there were sort of three foundations at which we wanted to base this work. And one was around inequity leading to health inequalities, poverty causing having an impact on health, and the fact that climate change is a public health emergency. So it immediately just became so relevant and easy to see that relevance and around the opportunity we had to engage this huge population of staff. I mean, NHS Scotland employs around 10% of the population, of the working population in Scotland. That's a huge number of people that we could impact through this work. So and about empowering them and engaging them in this. So yeah, it was great. And to have Charlotte and ScotDec there with that experience that they had of already delivering this global citizenship education in schools. So, they had worked in this area and they brought all of that expertise. It was really clear to me from the beginning that there was a lot of potential, and it was exciting.
Excellent. And I don't know if Bernie will listen to this recording, but she was the mention about that, because I think that you said something really interesting about, I mean, we're Bridge 47 event, but this thing about bridging, in the sense of being able to see what is the connection in this case between Malawi and Scotland, but also in the practices. And this element about day-to-day life, what is that we can do in our daily life? Is sometimes people can go abroad, but we can all do something on our day-to-day life. That's extraordinary. Thank you very much, Emily, for that. So for both of you, and in a way you already have mentioned this, but let's see where is that? What were the mutual benefits, but also challenges for both partners? Because partnerships, I mean, sounds grand, but sometimes partnerships can be a challenge too. So what is that? Benefits and challenges, and any one of you could start.
I'm happy to start if you want, if you want, Charlotte. There were actually a great many benefits that I think we got through this partnership. The first thing was actually it being a partnership, and it felt like a really true team. You know, unfortunately, when we started out on this work, COVID came along, and you know, one of the major challenges I personally had was I was a public health doctor in the middle of a public health pandemic, and so I had a real moral duty and obligation to return to my health board and to help with that immediate COVID response. And so that was an absolute practical challenge for me. But you know, once we were past the first wave, and I saw an opportunity that I could carve out small bits of time to actually keep this work going, because I really valued valued how, you know, important it was going to be. It was Eleanor from Bridge 47 who one day just sort of said to me, look, Emily, this doesn't all rest on your shoulders. You're not alone in this. We've got this. We've got you. You know, we can do this between us. And having that relationship with a non-health organization or two non-health organizations during this really critical time that we were going through in the health service, it was really actually energizing and encouraging and nurturing, because I was able to have that time with them talking about these important issues, and seeing that this work was emerging, and we were still progressing it, and at the same time, when I then returned, you know, my other hours in this acute response, you know, I had this kind of energy and hope that, you know, there's a world that exists outside of that. It's keeping going. People are getting through, you know, and there is another side to this. And so, despite being so busy and being so caught up in it all, I had this really lovely team that weren't acutely involved in a COVID response, that were carrying this partnership really, and carrying me along with it, and using the contributions that I could give when I can give them to just keep it going and keep it building. And I think what's really nice about this is health isn't determined by the health service. You know, health is determined by our social and economic factors, you know, our culture, our community. And so here we were with this partnership that was trying to empower the staff of NHS Scotland, who were trying to help the health of the population, but they came from outside the health service, and they brought that community spirit and that outside knowledge. It was a completely different organisations. They work completely differently to NHS Scotland. They brought that outside view and that community view, which ultimately is what ends up, you know, impacting on our health. So I loved working with a non-health organisation, and I think it was just especially valuable during this time.
Thank you, Emily. Charlotte. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I was absolutely amazed that we managed to keep this partnership going through COVID. I made the assumption about the middle of last year, you know, we'll just have to put this on ice and we'll come back to it. And then to be honest, I think Emily's vision and drive for this project has been absolutely amazing. Probably wouldn't have happened without her. So yeah, I mean, that has been a huge challenge, but we've got through it. And while we didn't do things, we've produced brilliant SDG pack, which I think is going to be really valuable to the NHS, and we didn't deliver the training. I kind of feel that the partnership is still kind of a work in progress, that even though the bridge project's ending, I think we will, this kind of conversation between ScotDec and the NHS started before the bridge project, and I think it will continue afterwards. So we've developed this training package that's yet to be delivered, and I hope that, you know, we'll continue to support that training and build on it as we go through. The other thing I would touch on is I would say some of the benefits for ScotDec actually has been really exciting. to work, to look and explore how global citizenship education looks in a completely different organization, in a completely different context. I mean, we've been lucky that I think it was a warm space that was interested that we were stepping into, so which makes it easier, but it has certainly made us revisit assumptions, challenge our thinking. I think particularly if you've been working like we have in the school sector for a long time, you can come a little bit kind of familiar with doing the same things. And it really, and I remember early on when pre-COVID, when we did an actual conference in Edinburgh, and I did a session, and the activity I did, I just kind of fell on my face a bit, to be honest, because there is such a different sector, such a different group of people who aren't used to all our nice participative methods, who thought I was slightly mad. So it was quite interesting to actually you know, revisit our own work and our own methods that are so familiar to us, and see and probably rethink them a little bit better and challenge our assumptions. So from that aspect, it was a incredibly value experience, and one that I would recommend to other people working in our sector, and would like to do again, I suppose.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I mean, on one hand, Charlotte, this element as a practitioner, the critical, a critical thinking about the methods and and how to adapt to different sectors. I think that is a really important element. And Emily, first of all, thank you for all the work that the NHS has been doing. And I think it's really powerful what you were saying about this element of nurturing, how a partnership can actually nurture in the times of challenges. And you were like in the middle of the pandemic, and that partnership actually gave other perspectives. And this element that you were saying about the understanding of health and the community spirit within health, I think that is a really, really powerful element. Beyond partnerships, is the element in relation of global citizenship education and how we can all be active citizens of that. So thank you to both for storing that experience, sharing with us the experience. Thank you very much. So now we are actually going to travel to Latvia. From Scotland, we are going to move to Latvia, and in Latvia, we have the Inga and Daiga, who are going to share with us their journey. We welcome you, and we would love to hear. We will start with Daiga, and Daiga, please share with us what is this partnership about, and what were the hopes when it started.
Okay, thank you, Charo. And speaking about Bridge 47 partnership, we were, how to say, unusual partners, because we have many partners in formal and non-formal education, but we looking for something new. For example, I talk with a policeman or something else, but and then I met Inga, and Inga are from museum network in Latvia, and she is a person who motivated me and inspiring me for new activities in Bridge 47. And we are happy because we have not only one partner, more than 100 partners, because this museum association have more than 100 different museums, state, municipal, private, and other museums. We are happy for this partnership, and I think Inga will tell a little more about our communication.
Thank you, Daiga. And yes, and Inga, why you thought, or your organization thought, that having a relationship, a partnership with Daiga's organization was something relevant for what you do?
Thank you. Actually, we were really desperate already at the point when we met Daiga and learned about the Center for Education Initiatives, because in the beginning of 2020, the Museum Association of Latvia started thinking and developing idea on educational programs for museum professionals on sustainable development and also global citizenship. And we were looking very thoroughly for partners and for support. And we realized that actually at that time in the cultural sector of our state, there was not much awareness actually of these values and these issues. And we felt a little bit yes, lonely and desperate, because we needed some resources, some support to really kick off this program. And then suddenly we found out that there is this great project, Bridge 47, and there is a local partner in Jēkabpils in Latvia, represented by Daiga. And when we met, it was really like a very happy moment, the magic. That was, I think, one of the questions on our list. That was a magical moment, and we realized that we can work together, and we can not only look for financial support from the project, but also benefit from the expertise and resources that were already collected before we joined. There were a lot of materials translated into Latvian, related to global citizenship education and education for sustainable development. So we really profited a lot from everything that was already done before us by several NGOs that were cooperating with the Center for Education Initiative. And just to give you an idea that there was just nothing done really in this field regarding the museums and the cultural heritage sector. So we started from nothing, from zero. And we, a year ago, actually, on the International Museum Day on 18th of May, we organized the very first educational event. It was already online, a webinar on SDGs with the Serbian museum professional Visna Kisic. And then we continued with writing actually the very first guide in Latvian on education for sustainable development. And then we got also support for the museums to start developing educational programs on these issues. So we did really a lot with the help of this project, and we really feel thankful, because now we see that conversations spark and people start talking and debating and sharing this experience and resources that have been created. And we get more and more support also from our governmental institutions, because they see that the sector is interested to develop this educational programs and raise awareness of these things. So we believe that in the end, we have reached this point that museums themselves, they want to become these active citizens who really engage with the SDGs and global citizenship education and become serious actors in this place. So this is from my side.
Thank you, Inga. I mean, I think that you really put very clearly this element across, that you were looking for the resources that need, and you even used the word desperate. And when you find this opportunity, it was just like like perfect, and mutuality, quite a lot of mutuality and reciprocity. But and you have put very clearly the benefits that you got. Daiga, any benefits for your organization, and also share with us if there was any challenges on the road, because we can also learn from, if you find any challenges, what can we learn from that? What can you learn from that? So Daiga, benefits for your organization.
Yes, our benefits, of course, is new partners. So many new partners, more than 100 museums in Latvia, which is non-formal educators in everywhere in our country, of course. And I believe that our museums would like to learn, to participate, to operate, to disseminate information, to learn from experts, and involve new participants, and and participate in new activities in GCA and SDG. And I would like to hope that it is driving force of our cooperation.
Excellent, excellent. And Inga, challenges. Any challenges on the road?
Well, yes, basically only practical things like museums are in Latvia are mainly governmental or municipality institutions, and Daiga's organization is an NGO, and then there is this huge project behind her. So the terms of reference were a little bit unclear for us because maybe we're used to operate in a different frame, but it was worth getting to know those new conditions and to figure out how we can do things, because in the end, I think just one more benefit, we have to also recognize that we're not used to cooperate with NGOs and be partners in international scale. Somehow we tended to work in our small teams with our given budgets and not so flexible. So it was a challenge and a benefit. At the same time, we had to learn new cooperation skills.
Thank you very much. That element about learning new ways of doing things, like, for example, working online. But thank you very much, Inga and Daiga, for sharing the experience from Latvia. And the third example that we have, the third journey that we have, is an example from Ireland. And we are actually going to listen from Claire and from Frank, that they were in this partnership. And we're going to start with Frank, asking Frank again to share with us what was this partnership about, and what was the hope for this partnership when it started, to learn from the journey.
Thanks, Charo. I guess the main hope from this partnership was really for us to learn. We really wanted to learn from the experience. We wanted to challenge ourselves, and we wanted to see what it was like working with a sector, with whom we did not have a lot of experience working with. And I know in the earlier parts of the session, some of those kind of questions were raised, and we were really interested in both learning as a global citizenship education network, but also mutual learning, ensuring that there was meaningful engagement and learning with our colleagues in Deloitte, as well as meaningful learning and engagement within our own network. So that was a really important hope. And I guess another part of that is reaching, reaching people and engaging with people and organizations who we hadn't or don't normally engage with. And I think that's a really important, I sometimes find, if I think about education and what education, is fundamentally about, it's about, reaching learners, engaging with learners, mutual learning together, but that drive to, work with and speak to and engage with more people and different groups, I think is such a central and important part of it. And I guess, there were other things in terms of, how global citizenship education methods and approaches might work in a business environment. We were really interested to explore that. We were interested to be challenged in terms of our own assumptions. And we were really aware that Deloitte had been taking action around the Sustainable Development Goals. And we were interested to see how how we could demonstrate that a global citizenship education approach to the Sustainable Development Goals might have more impact in terms of engaging with staff, staff's own ownership, and thinking, critically about the issues and about potential actions.
Brilliant, Frank. Thank you so much. I love the way you frame it about this is for learning. We haven't done it before. Let's learn. Let's see what we can learn from this. And let's listen from Claire. In your introduction, Claire, you also mentioned that you're a bridge person because you're coming from one sector and you're working in another sector, which actually gives you loads of elements and possibilities to see the bigger picture. So what did you or your organization see on global citizenship education as relevant to explore this partnership, to start this partnership?
Yeah, thanks a million, Charo. I suppose as a firm, we're very much purpose driven, and it's important to us that our people have the opportunity to make an impact that matters, and that's across a couple of different areas. So making an impact with our clients, obviously, with our people, so looking after each other in our community and on the planet then as well. And I suppose if I take everyone back to March time last year, when many of us became of this part of this kind of mass remote working experiment, unwittingly, suddenly we were all kind of left with just our job. So we weren't getting those opportunities maybe to learn organically as much. We weren't getting those opportunities to network as much. So it was a real time of thinking and change for our team, I suppose. And when you call yourself a purpose-driven organization, and an organization for which CSO or corporate social responsibility is really important, how do you make sure that that culture is felt by the organization when there isn't a kind of a physical space holding you all together? So I suppose two things became really important for us in looking after our employees, and the first being well-being, and the second being those CSR initiatives and making sure that people understood that there were still opportunities for them to give back, whether they were at their kitchen table or up in their bedrooms, whatever it might be. And I suppose we really had to think about how we were still reaching and engaging with our staff. So I often say it's very easy for me as a CSR professional to see how people can make an impact. But if I think about the profile maybe of a typical employee at Deloitte, it might be an auditor that very often works long hours. How do they fit into the story of making an impact and having an impact on the SDGs and helping to realize them? And I suppose that's where the partnership with Bridge 47 and IDEA came for us. And really what they did so well was just help us to communicate to staff how they could make an impact, how local issues in their own communities maybe were something that they could work on. So not just how you're having an impact in your working role, but also thinking about you as a kind of a person as well outside of your working environment. And I think the time when we met G from IDEA, it was at that very time when I suppose Zoom fatigue maybe was setting in, and we very much wanted a participation style event for our employees, and not just something that they felt that they were dialing in on and passively listening to, I suppose. And I think that's something that the team did really, really well. And it's just one of the great things that our people got from it, I think.
Thank you, Claire. And Frank, any benefits? Let's explore benefits and challenges. What have been the benefits and challenges for on this partnership so far?
I think some of the benefits have been along the lines, I think, of what Claire was just saying and what I was saying earlier, was just actually that learning, the understanding and building the confidence that the approach that we have can work really well in different contexts. I think a couple of the people earlier said this as well, that there is that kind of light bulb moment of, we always thought this could work in different contexts, and here we are seeing it happening. So I think that's really important. And then, G and Orla, our other colleague who's worked really closely on this, spent so much time kind of thinking about what might work, working with our members, with our member network, to bring in other organizations and others who are active in the area to see what would work well, and working really closely with Claire and her colleagues to see what would work. And I think a really key learning and benefit is that actually those conversations are, just as important as, the events or the public facing side of things. That partnership is made up of all of these different pieces along the way, and how important that is, and that those creating those spaces, how important that is. So I think those are really crucial things. I think another really key benefit is, as we talked about, was helping us to reach a wider and a new audience for global citizenship education, and demonstrating what it can do in different places. So I think there was a huge amount of learning and a huge amount of benefit. I think in terms of challenges, I think one of the challenges can often be for global citizenship education actually about articulating what we do and what we're about. That can be a challenge. I think, as probably most people in this room will know, that it can be difficult for us to do that because one, we're very passionate about what we do, and two, oftentimes people can we can run into the detail of what we do and miss giving people the bigger picture, or or vice versa. So I think that point of kind of communicating clearly what we do and what we're about is something that actually, I don't know, Claire, you may or may not be aware of this in your conversations with GE, that a huge amount of work was done in advance to make sure that there was clarity and that there is clarity in terms of what we do. And I think another one I'd mention is just, and this was mentioned earlier, is that there's an element of risk, with any kind of new partnership like this. There's an element of risk, there's an element of stepping into the unknown. And that is, of course, a challenge, and finding that space where values align, taking the time to develop through those conversations, partnership and engagement is really important. But I suppose, if we don't take the risks, we might miss the benefits that come from those risks as well.
Thank you, Frank. Challenges to explain what is global citizenship education and to explain what you do. I think it's a really challenge for most practitioners. Claire, do you want to add any other benefit or challenge?
Yeah, great. So I suppose just one big benefit for me would be looking at the story of the partnership, really. So when we first engaged with them, it was as part of our Impact Week. So that's a week where our people have the chance to get involved in different volunteering opportunities, hear from other people maybe on the great work they're doing outside of work, and learn as well. So I suppose looking at how the partnership developed from that first Impact Week, we then went back to the team again when we were considering bringing on our group of graduates. So every year we take on a couple of hundred graduates, and they ended up giving an SDG session that was part of the formal induction process for that cohort. So that was really, really, I suppose, inspiring to me and motivational in terms of the work that we do and the importance of it, that the team were part of our formal induction program for that cohort. There's a lot of research around the importance of working for a company with a kind of a social consciousness, with that millennial and Gen Z group in particular, not to stereotype, but in particular with that group. So it was great to be able to show them and tell that story as they were so new to the business. And then most recently, I suppose the third workshop we worked on with the team was around our climate week there in April. So it was fantastic to have them on board again and do a session specifically on climate action, that goal, and just make sure that our employees were kind of aware of the work we were doing around that. And then I suppose, to me, the challenges would have all been small logistical things around, I suppose, working remotely, and we were all learning. I think that kind of very active learning is something that the team get really right at IDEA and Bridge 47, and we certainly learned a huge amount from them there, and took those learnings back to how we did sessions ourselves. Oftentimes we would be working with cohorts that are quite big, so you could have 50, 60 people maybe on a call, and just to see how the team kind of manage them and encourage participation, and use different platforms like the Miro boards. That was all fantastic. So I suppose we took a huge amount of learnings from that as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Frank and Claire, for bringing the story from Ireland. And I'm going to ask Alan. Alan, could you please put all the panelists in the spotlight? Because I have a question for all of you. And this question is exactly about the title of the session, which is Where the Magic Happen. So in one breath, meaning it's like a one sentence, in one breath, where did the magic happen in this partnership journey for you? Where is that moment that you actually say, and here, this is why it sparkles, or something that you say it's worth it, or where the magic happens? So let's start with Emily. Let's go on the circle as if we were sitting around a campfire. And we are exploring where the magic happens. Emily.
Thank you. I think I've touched on some of it already. I think it was the magic for me happened when, despite being in the thick of everything of COVID, I was having Eleanor and Kate there as that glue that held us together. That was really, just carrying us along and saying, we can do this, we can get this through this. And I think the magic was just recognizing this huge potential that we this opportunity that we had here in our hands, and that huge potential to really give something back to the NHS workers, to say, this here's a physical resource that you can look at and you can use it to really empower your day-to-day work in NHS Scotland. That's, I think, the crucial magic for me.
Thank you. Charlotte.
For me, it was the relationships and the people. To be honest, it was Emily and it was Bernie for having that vision and pushing it forward, and then the support from Bridge through Eleanor and Kate, and then ScotDec coming in to help out as well. So I think it was that. It was just I don't think you can underestimate the relationships and the people in a partnership. That's what makes it fly.
Thank you, Charlotte. Inga.
Thank you. For me, the magic was the partnership itself. It was a magic to find partners and support where we didn't search in the beginning. It was very unexpected that in this sector and in this scale, we found such a great cooperation.
Thank you, Inga. Daiga.
Thank you. I would like to say that our magic happened is our meeting with Inga, with Latvian Museum Association, and then everything happened.
Thank you, Daiga. Claire.
Yeah, I suppose for me, it was just watching the understanding that the team at IDEA had of our company, and I suppose some of the challenges and opportunities we might have in terms of supporting our people to give back to the community.
Thank you. And Frank?
I think for me, it's that mutual learning, those places where people come together and you can just see people learning and engaging with each other. And I think that then when it almost felt like the word spread within Deloitte, and seeing this then, through, as Claire says, not one, but several different events following on from it was I think, really interesting.
Excellent. Thank you, all of you, for sharing with us the stories, but also that last round where you actually percolate where the magic happens, because that is very helpful. So this is what we're going to do now. Could we see the graphic recorder graphics? Yes, could we, Alan, or I don't know who is projecting.
Just a second.
Yes, and we are going to have a little comfort break. I say a little, it's going to be time where you can digest individually. Here it's some of the information that has been recorded graphically. Thank you, Maria. And at the same time, for you to think about what was something that you heard that maybe inspired you, or had a feeling, or an aha moment that you experienced when we were listening to the stories. And if you have a burning question to one of the partners, if there is something that you want to ask to them, so let's take 5 minutes to have that personal digestion, and then we are actually going to come back to go into breakout rooms. So apologize. I'm looking at the time. So here for me it's 1:03. Is that okay if we come back at 1:07 or 07, wherever you are in the world? Is that okay? Thank you. So we'll leave you with. Thank you for the music, lovely music. So welcome back. What we're going to do is that we are going to go now into breakout rooms. And here are the instructions. The tool that we are going to use is Jamboard, and we're going to project the Jamboard right now. There is the link for the Jamboard is on the chat. And the idea of going into breakout rooms is, as you know, we have heard these 3 inspiring stories about partnership, but now we're actually going to digest in a small group. Here are the instructions. So first, please nominate a timekeeper, because you are going to have like 20 minutes to do this activity, and someone that actually can take notes in the Jamboard. For the ones that is the first time that you use Jamboard is like a flip chart, and you put post-its in. There are like 2 parts. The first part, the first 10 minutes, is for you to introduce yourself. The groups are going to be of 5 to 6 people. I don't know if it's Ricarda. Could you take that post-it, Ricarda, so then I can read the instructions? Yes, and then Ricardo is going to show us how to put the post-it. So the first 10 minutes, as it says on the screen, is that for you to introduce yourself, and here is when you share some reactions to the panel, a reflection. As we were saying, maybe you have an aha moment when you hear something that could be useful for you, or maybe you have a question. The questions are going to be posted in the flip chart that I'm going to show you in a minute. The second bit of the conversation, the next 10 minutes, is not only about the panel, but what you have heard, but also to explore and to share ideas for future possibilities for partnership with new or unusual sectors that could advance the mission of global citizenship education. Maybe something that you want to explore, maybe something that you want to learn, maybe something that you have seen a possibility and that you want to explore that. So again, 2 bits. First bit about what you heard, and the second bit about the future. And Ricarda, could you move to the next flip chart, please? Yes. And here, Ricardo is going to help us to explain how to put the post-it. So basically, you go to the side, to the left side, you click on the little post-it, you click there, and a post-it will exactly appear. You just type what you want to type, and then you just, do you want to type something there? So then you can just save, exactly, welcome. And then you just save, change colors, you save it, and it's there on the post-it, and you just can move the post-it to different places. So it's very simple. And we hope that there will be someone from Bridge in each room. And if you need anything at all, please just press help on the breakout room, and we will go to see you. Great if you put the questions on the flip chart, because then the panelists can actually see if there are any questions, and we can navigate on that. So if the flip chart, it's too busy, this one, you just click on the top and you can see another flip chart on the next. You just like scroll to the to get the next posters. So having said that, let's go to the breakout rooms. And I think it's fascinating because we don't know who is going to arrive. So it's always good to arrive with a smile. So Alan, could you please open the breakout rooms, please?
The rooms are ready, and have nice discussions.
Excellent. Yes. Thank you. It says that there are some people unassigned, but you are checking on that, no? Yeah.
Hi, sorry, my Wi-Fi connection keeps coming.
So this is what we are going to do. We are going to look at the Jamboard and to see what are the questions that emerge. And let's see, there are like many questions, but we are actually going to see how that we can address this. So Ricarda, please, could you share the Jamboard? Excellent. And so we were reading at these questions. I was in a breakout room with the panelists, and we were approaching this of who can address different questions. So we're going actually to start with something very practical. The question of what were the successes and concrete output of the partnerships. And we are going to ask Emily. Emily, please, if you can share with us something very concrete output.
Yep, Great. Okay, so the outputs themselves, we were trying to develop an educational resource for staff of NHS Scotland. So we created a booklet and accompanying postcards of the 17 SDG goals. So each goal has a postcard, and on it is the goal itself, and then some reflections around what that relevance could mean for NHS Scotland staff. And then on the back, we had a case study of someone or something that's within the NHS Scotland or indeed for NHS Scotland staff to be able to tap into, an example of a network that they might be able to join. So that essentially it was a practical way to look at that SDG. And then the accompanying activity book offered these ways that people could use these postcards to explore them deeper with their teams or on a personal level, talking them through 4 different activities. So that was the practical resource, and that's online at the Global Citizenship, Global Health Coordination Unit website, as well as we have printed off some physical copies as well. And then we also ran a webinar at the end of last year around just introducing the concept of what is global citizenship education for staff to call into. But what we recognised is that during this time, it's very difficult for staff to, the priority is the front line. And so the final part of the resources is developing 4 webinars, which we've developed. And they're not going to be released as webinars, but they're being released as the actual materials that people would need to run a webinar or a training session. So it's the PowerPoint slides, it's the facilitation pack that goes with it, all that will be downloadable from the website again, so that as people progress through that journey of learning and understanding more about global citizenship education, they can work through these resources with their teams. And we're very familiar in the NHS of this whole concept of training the trainer. So we have that ability to use this cascade approach. We've got the Global Citizenship Network, which exists across the health service. In each of the health boards has a global citizenship lead champion. And so we have this opportunity to really be able to disseminate these resources for people to use them if they wish. So it's a very practical output that we hope will be very useful and seen as a gift actually to the staff.
Excellent. I love that idea about it's very practical, but as a gift, something that you can use in different contexts, and you can cascade and share not only with your colleagues, but also with your family and neighbors and other people that have interest on that. Thank you. Let's move to the other question, which is a very practical too. How we explain what we do to other people. Partnerships are so important. What more needs to be done? So here, Inga, how do we explain this?
Yes, thanks for this question. I didn't mention that actually learning to communicate our work was part of our museums project. So I already mentioned we published a guide on museums work with the SDGs in Latvian, and an idea was first to coach our colleagues to learn the terms, to learn the concepts behind that, and to get to use them. But then on the webpage of the Latvian Museum Association, we started publishing descriptions and text on museum projects related to education on the SDGs and global citizenship education, using these new terms and so to say practicing this new terminology. And when we also communicate our educational programs to schools, which are a huge audience for museums, we encourage our colleagues also to frame it in this way that they have learned. So I think it's very important for us to really train the professionals to do it properly, and then they can really gain the capacity of also, yes, communicating with wider audiences on what they do in this perspective.
Thank you, Inga. And Charlotte, we want you to help us to navigate on this question, which is like what more needs to be done, and how these challenges, how we work, that you mentioned actually a little bit around about that when you were talking about the experience that you had. So yes, how this challenges how we work, our methodologies, bursting CGE bubble and reflecting on it. We listen to you.
Yeah, thank you. I suppose having worked, having been a teacher and worked in education, I think teachers are quite similar as a group that you're working with, and then working to deliver a webinar in the NHS with hundreds and hundreds of people work, but there's also really different jobs. You have people like Emily who are, you know, clinical doctors, and then you have administrators, and then you have people who are also important, who are, you know, providing care through cleaning and cooking, and you have such a vast array of people within the NHS. So I guess it was a challenge to think about how you would provide a space for everybody to be comfortable in. And I think a lot of our methodologies that we traditionally use in global citizenship education are very participative and ask people to be very reflective and explore their own values. And I think one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot more is that you have to make sure that people are comfortable in this space. You have to spend time creating a comfortable space for people then to step in and feel that they can explore these ideas and challenge their assumptions and reflect on their values. And I think Emily might agree with me that the NHS felt a little bit more hierarchical than possibly other spaces that we've worked in, and some people wouldn't feel comfortable challenging something or making critical comments if someone else was in the room who they felt might be more senior to them. So I suppose it's being very much more aware of who is in the space and creating a space where people feel comfortable and confident in using these types of methodologies that we use quite a lot. And then another step might be then to move on to a space where they feel like the brave space, where they feel that they can then start to challenge and be more critical. So from my perspective, it was probably taking a step back and thinking more about how the participants' experience of some of these methodologies that we do. And the final thing I'd also add is making sure that we're starting from where they are, and which kind of talks a little bit more back to that first question about how do we explain to people what GC is and what we do. And I think maybe sometimes the starting point is what is the bit with that partner that connects most closely to GCE. So with the NHS partnership, it was the overseas volunteering experience, there was the poverty and inequality, there was the waste, and there was the climate. So there was clear kind of themes that we could connect into first of all, rather than trying to go for the big picture.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. And something that you said when we were in the interview that actually struck with me, and it's like how this challenge, how we work too, is how global citizenship education practitioners, we actually have a time of reflection to explore what are the assumptions that we have also about other sectors. And I think that is a very healthy exercise of challenging ourselves and saying like, what is that how do I perceive the world, and what is that, and how am I communicating this in a way that makes sense for the other person. So yeah, so continue with the questions. We have questions here for Claire. Claire, there are two questions about like how this started, and also about how CGE partnership influenced thinking on wider corporate practice, no, and how they contribute to sustainability and SDG. So if you can help us addressing.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks, Charo. I suppose the first question there around how it shapes or influences the wider corporate practices. So to give an example of one of the workshops, it was done with a cohort of new graduates that came from our audit department, and it was a part of a day-long session with them around corporate responsibility, the SDGs, and their role as auditors, I guess, in all of this story. And currently at Deloitte, we're trying to put together together a sustainability offering for our clients, and that offering sits under risk advisory and the audit departments. So really what the session did for us was it reached a cohort of very I suppose not necessarily young, but early auditors in terms of where they're at in their career, and really spoke to them around what their future career might look like. So as people who are very much focused on the financial reporting side of things, encouraging them to look maybe at the non-financial reporting side. The SDGs are a hugely important framework within ESG reporting and that non-financial reporting sector. So it was really challenging though, I suppose, to kind of look at that and where their career might sit in a couple of years' time. Secondly, I suppose it had an influence on me as a CSR professional in terms of how I communicate to people about what we do and how our work is aligned to the SDGs. As a team, we'd meet everyone that comes through the doors as part of their induction program. They meet with us in terms of corporate social responsibility, and I suppose it kind of really clarified for me my technique around speaking about the SDGs and how they can get involved. On the second question around how the partnership evolved, I'm afraid I've got quite an unsatisfying answer for this one. Myself and Frank were trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together, but I think it was just kind of an ad hoc thing, really. A colleague of mine would have spoken on a similar event a couple of years ago, so both IDEA and Bridge 47 were definitely on our radar. And then when it came to Impact Week around October last year, we were kind of starting to do the prep around this time probably, and we were looking into what is out there in terms of the SDGs. We knew we wanted something that was very much a session that people could participate in and not just listen to, and we wanted to go to, I suppose, experts in their field as well, and that's I suppose where the sessions came to light for us. So somewhat ad hoc, I suppose, but it's been great that the past year that it's kind of been built on.
Thank you so much, Claire. We have one question here too. Sorry, there are two on the side. It's like how CGE offers an amazing way of working with partnerships. Frank, do you want to take that one?
Sure, yeah, very happy to, Charo. I guess this kind of maybe links with, there was some questions there about the fundamental issues and how these partnerships are addressing the fundamental issues. And I think these two things are connected. I suppose in the first place, those difficult values-based structural issues that are such an important part of global citizenship education were a really central and important part of these partnerships. So as others have explained, you know, and I thought Charlotte put this really well about kind of creating the space for those discussions was absolutely key and absolutely central. And, you know, having those discussions about the SDGs, the critiques of the SDGs or otherwise. And we worked very closely in the Irish partnerships with our members, Development Perspectives and Global Action Plan, who I know many of you will know, to design these sessions, and also working with Claire and her team to design these sessions to ensure that, you know, those key issues were there and were explored and were discussed, and that there was a space created in order to do that. And I think that really connects, Charo, with your question about why GCE is so important in this context. It's because one of the things that we do well, regardless of what context we're in, is actually creating those spaces for, you know, as we said at the beginning, sometimes difficult discussions, sometimes agreement, sometimes disagreement around really fundamental issues. And I think what we found is that people in all sectors are asking these questions. So creating spaces where people can come together to explore them is really, really important. And I mean, there's some examples that came up in you know, I know in the Deloitte partnership, for example, housing and homelessness was a really key issue, which is a really key structural issue here in Ireland. Inga mentioned that there was discussion about artifacts and where artifacts come from, or, you know, with textile, the role of women, you know, and the position of women within, you know, within all of our societies, past and present. With the NHS, Emily and Charlotte, we're talking about the social aspects of healthcare care and how equality and inequality impacts on those. And I think another example from, we did a session with business in the community in Northern Ireland, and there was a really interesting discussion about sustainable fashion and retail. And you had somebody there from a big retail chain, someone from a small NGO, both of whom were really taking each other on these issues, and both of whom were learning from these issues. So I think that's why it's those fundamental issues and taking those on is why GCE is so important in this space.
Thank you very much, Frank, because you were addressing some of the questions that were here on the next flip chart around SDGs and how we work with others, and also what you were saying, how to bring the essence of CGE and how actually that is the essence of creating that space for dialogue and creating that space for the listening and the dialogue, and also to listen to different perspectives. There is one more here that I didn't see that earlier on because just appeared here, which is also a very practical one, which is true, the jargon that is around, no? And when you work with sectors, it could be confusing to use the jargon. A little bit on the communication bit. How do the partners avoid the problem with it? I don't know if anybody else from the panel wants to address this. What to do, and which is again in the communication. Inga, I think that you have experience about how to communicate. I don't know if you want to address that in relation of the jargon.
Yeah, I think I partly touched that in my previous answer. It's really a question of learning in the beginning, but then at some point we realized in our museums community, it became already a playful way that we were already slowly becoming able to joke using only quotes from the 17 SDGs. And so I think we have to establish some common base, and then it's not so difficult further on. But yeah, you need to have this common language not only with your partners, but then also with the users of your products and things you do. And this is maybe a little bit more difficult, but I think we have this this jargon and the whole Agenda 2030 for the next 10 years. So it's worth engaging and having spending some common time to learn it.
Thank you so much. And please, Ricarda, if you can stop sharing the screen. Excellent, thank you. And we are going actually to invite Frank. Frank, what is next? I mean, Bridge 47 and has been this journey about learning about partnerships and so on. But what is next?
So thanks, Charo. In terms of what's next, I mean, firstly, I hope that everybody, it's been a really interesting experience here today, and it's been really interesting kind of mutual learning. So that's really key to what's next. The Bridge 47 network will continue, and Alan here is, really key person in relation to all of that. And we hope that within the network, there will be space to explore partnerships further. So perhaps a partnership working group or some kind of other way that we can come together within the network to further explore this. We're also reflecting on all of the questions that you've spoken about today, and there is a publication that is being prepared. And I know that Harmjan Frick and Kirsten Wittig were with us here today to explore that. And they're working on this publication. So really looking forward to sharing that with all of you. And that does include things like working with the police sector as one of the kind of key areas in that. So hopefully that can address some of the points that were raised earlier. Yeah, we really want to keep the dialogue going. We want to keep the conversation going, and we want to keep on learning from each other. So thank you to all of the panelists, to everybody who has been here for this learning and this engagement. I do want to just mention the partnerships, the team within Bridge 47 who worked on partnerships, who've done amazing and really, really hard work on this. over the course of the project, and we'll continue and are continuing to do that amazing work. But really did just want to mention the team who've done such brilliant work. And thank you, Charo, to Alan and Ricarda, to everybody who's made this pretty interesting event happen.
Thank you so much, Frank. And before we go, we have 3 minutes to see the graphic recording that it has been. Let's see what are the keywords that are coming and sparkling. Could we put in a spotlight there, where the magic happens? Partnerships beyond the comfort zone, the uncomfort, the discomfort. You can see here the 3 stories where the magic happen, mutual learning, the relationships, the opportunity to make an impact. And we have the benefits and the challenges. Thank you very much for that. And if we can go back to gallery, this is going to be shared with everyone, as Alan is saying. If we can go back to gallery view to say goodbye. So I'm going to move from the spotlight. A spotlight for no. Okay. So thank you very much. And as a way of saying goodbye, if you could write on the chat anything that you're taking with you, if you're taking any magic from this session, any words that you want to leave of what was these 2 hours of listening and sharing and learning together. Partnerships are relationships, and partnerships are built one step at a time. And I think that we all can learn from that. So thank you very much. And Alan, do we have something you want to announce something? And thank you to all the panelists.
Yes, I will just quickly jump in. Thank you so much, Charo, for leading us so swiftly through this session, so full of insights. I believe we all probably agree that we have to question our comfort zones and really try to look beyond. And maybe one thing I heard in another event is a quote that if we all agree at the table, that maybe not all the right persons are at the table. So that really stuck with me. So maybe something to take.